Hey there, everybody. What I want to talk about today is reaction and responding to things. Has something ever happened in your life and then all of a sudden you just react? And then afterwards you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I did this, or you either said something or you did something. It's almost happens automatic, right? Well, then this video is for you, because what I want to share is a couple ways that I have really stopped reacting to things that happens instantaneously and start responding to things, and really not having those automatic things that we do and then later we regret. So I want to share a story with you. So essentially, years ago, I was in business with my brother, and there is something about family. Then there's a lot of triggers when you're around family. I don't know if you ever experienced. It's like when you go to the holidays with your family, right? As an adult, there's certain things, triggers, what I call them, and what they are is things that they might say or do, or maybe just a feeling that you might get that might just cause some sort of reaction in you, right? So going back to my brother, so we were in business for many years. Now there was certain things that he would say that would trigger in me just outburst of, usually of anger, right? Like, I can't believe you said that to me, right? And he was my older brother. So then years later, what I realized is that I was just kind of reacting or playing to the things that I grew up as a child with him as my older brother, right? So for instance, we were in business. I was a finance guy. I was a numbers guy, so he would want to spend money, right? And since that was my control, then I would just react. I would just give an outburst, right? It's like, I can't believe you spend all this money on this, without taking the moments of understanding it, why, right? And then of course, it'd be this huge fight, and so forth. So what I want to be able to show you in this video is the way I was be able to stop reacting to things, because it happens in everything, right? I mean, someone can just cut you off the road, or like if you have children, children sometimes can be triggers for us as adults. And all that is doing, those triggers, is just bringing up old emotions from us, right? That's what I realized. So as a child, we have certain experiences between, I say between 0 to like 7 years old, even because when you're in the womb of your mom, she might experience certain things. And since everything is essentially vibration, frequency, let's say, you're inside your mom, and she experiences some sort of really high emotion, right? That's frequency. Whatever she felt and you felt, even you're not unborn yet. So that actually gets engraved in us. And what I mean by engraved, it becomes part of us, right? Like that frequency, it somewhat changes us, and we kind of memorize it, right? So triggers, like what happened with my brother in business, or when you go back home for the holidays, right? Or you talk to your mom and dad, or your brothers, your siblings, friends can even trigger, but it usually happens a lot with family, is that you're remembering subconsciously something in the past, some sort of event that triggered it. So for my brother was when he would spend money that I thought that it didn't need to be spent in the business, it was that control thing, right? Since he was always my older brother, and somewhat always in control when we were young. So and we were old, I was managing a business. It was my control. He was taking my control away. So that's why I would react that way, right? Without considering, the reasons why he did it, and, things like that. So a lot of it was just emotions coming up, right? And you probably feel that as well. So when there's a trigger event, if we don't stop and take our time to be able to understand how we're going to respond or react, we usually just react, because that's your subconscious mind bringing up some sort of event in the past that's associating with that trigger, right? So what we want to do, and what I have done, is really to understand that separation of, and first of all, understanding that you have choices, right? When a trigger happens, you either can respond or you can react. Remember, when you react, that's instantaneously. It's usually with emotions. It's usually, very, just happens, right? I mean, it just goes from like 0 to 60, right? Like you might yell, you might, whatever you might do, but it's just like an outburst, right? Now that's going to happen, but we can also respond. And when you respond to things, right, that's more conscientious, right? You're using more like critical thinking, right? So what I do, and the way I started doing this is because in the past, and even in business, right? So let's say, I'll give you this example. When I first, long time ago, started in business, I would react a certain way when someone didn't, one of my clients, did something, or maybe they were dissatisfied, or maybe even, signing up a client, right? I would react in certain ways. And then I really had to go back and find out, why was I reacting? Usually it's some sort of emotion, some sort of past experience that brings up in that moment, because your subconscious mind really just does what it does. It's like an automatic pilot. Like if you ever realize, like, we're really an automatic pilot the majority of the time. A great example I like is when you're driving a car and you're going to a destination. You're driving along. You might have your GPS going, and then you might start thinking of things, or in a conversation with someone else in the car, and all of a sudden, bam, you're in your destination. It's like 20, 10 an hour. A couple hours just went so fast, and who the heck was driving? That's your subconscious mind, because it automatically knows, right? Your subconscious mind, controls your lungs, your breathing. Like, you don't tend to think about breathing, right? It becomes automatic. So one of the best ways that you can start responding to things and not reacting, it's exactly that, is taking a deep breath. In other videos, I've shared that I literally had to relearn how to breathe, right? Because it happens so automatic that we don't think about. Now, the Dalai Lama wrote a great book, and someone interviewed him. And I'll put, if you're interested with the title, I can always put it in the comments, but someone interviewed him and they said, from all your meditation practice, right, from all of his years, like, what would he recommend? So the book is about maybe 200 or 300 pages. I read the whole book, and the one reoccurring thing that he kept saying is breath, breathing. Breathing is really the life source of us. Now, the thing is, it happens so automatic, we don't even think about it, because your subconscious mind is doing it. So if you want to stop reacting to things, right, and then regretting what you're doing, like that outburst or something like that with your kids, with your family, whatever it may be, and you want to respond, use your breath. Now, the breath is really important, because breathing, now awareness of your breath brings you to the present moment. Right? Usually when you're responding to something, again, it's your subconscious mind describing information, from the past, or, making something up in reference, not really the present moment, and then you react. So if you take a few deep breaths, usually if you count up to 10, right, you're able to separate that distance between that event or that trigger, and then what it is that you choose to do, either react or obviously respond, right? And it's very powerful to respond, because then you're in control, right? You're not letting, like for myself, when I would react, to my brother, my business partner's actions of spending some sort of, money, ridiculous money on some sort of business expense, I wasn't giving him the control, right? Because in that moment, as soon as I react, I gave him control. Right, because now it was subconscious, right? Now it's like, oh my God, like, we're going to get into this huge heated arguments, right? I lost control, right? So what I want to do is I want to stay in control and be able to respond. And again, the majority of it is our emotions take over, and then we just react. For myself, for many, many years, I was kind of tagged the emotional kid, right? Growing up, I was very, very reactive, right? Like I just, as a child, did not know how to express my emotions, right? No one teaches us how to express our emotions. So what do? We bottle it up. Now, I honestly think we've all passed through a lot of trauma as a child, even that you can remember or that you can't. Doesn't mean that you were physically, abused. They're just situations that we experience as a child that have emotions, because emotions are just our response to them, right? Emotions are good. They are actually our feedback, right? And we have to sense them. But how many times as a child did you hear no? Stop crying. Stop acting this way. Stop doing this, right? So as a child, what are we going to do? We're just going to bottle it up, right? It's almost, you put it in the bottle and you seal it up, right? So not to respond. Stop crying, right? And what that does, that bottle is up. Now, once in a while, when something triggers it as adults, we're going to let some of it out and then we're going to put it back in, right? So to understand this, that usually it's our emotions that actually are reacting to our trigger. Then we can say, okay, we can lengthen that time, right? By breathing, right? By staying present, right? And then we're able to respond more thoughtfully, right? And choosing to do it. And I truly honestly think that, we go through trauma as children, right? And even as adults. And PTSD is something that you hear about that happens, like in men and women in service, right? Like in the military. But I truly honestly think, and I've experienced that we go through PTSD ourselves as civilians, right? You don't have to go overseas to war, right? Like you can get PTSD if you have a divorce, or you can have PTSD as a child for some sort of memory or something that your parents said, that you just recorded that, because your body does record emotions. Joe Dispenza is someone that talks about this, right? And that's actually the first place that I learned from the emotional code, is that your body actually memorizes emotions, right? And the reason it does that, especially very high elevated emotions, right? Because it's made to protect you. Your brain, part of your brain, our most oldest part of our brain, our reptilian brain, our nervous system, wants to protect us. So it's going to remember anytime you've had an escalation of emotions, be it fear, you're in danger, or it just memorizes it, right? So it's going to bring that memory back again when something triggers it. That's why we react. And the way we're able to do it first is to know that we can control it, and to really start identifying those triggers. And I could talk about this in another video, which has helped me a lot, right? Not to become that emotional, and to really find out what those triggers are, because every trigger is actually a moment for you to learn something, right? So like, for instance, that example of my brother when he wanted to spend money, right? And then we would get in an altercation because I would react in a negative way, was able to learn about control, right? It wasn't that I was giving away or he was taking the control of it. I was still in control of it, but it was me controlling it. So what I had to do is I had to learn how to manage that, right? It's not just about me controlling the money in the business. It's about me creating that process or that conversation, right? So that taught me that I just don't have to stay in control, right? Doesn't mean just because someone else does something means I lose control, right? And I can talk about that. Control is one of those things that, I have struggled in the past as well too. And, even control actually holds you back quite a bit, not just growing in life, but also in business. If you are in business, even in the workplace with relationships, the only thing we can control is ourselves, right? We can't control anything external, right? I think it's, something that we all try to control, if it's the weather, if it's the traffic, the way other people react, respond, our jobs, clients, family. We can't control any of that, right? The only thing we can control is ourselves and how we respond to things, right? A very important philosophy that I've studied and that has really formed me in the direction that I am now is Stoicism, and really, and Marcus Aurelius is a great philosopher. If you ever heard of him, if not, I would research him. But he says the only thing that we can control is we can't control our thoughts. We can't control anything else besides us, right? Ourselves, right? So the way we respond to things, right? That's what we can control. And that's what's really going to change your life once you start realizing that it's not your job, it's not your boss, it's not the weather, it's not your family, right? They're always going to be there, right? And usually from what I've experienced is that the outside world that you're experiencing is a direct reflection of yourself inside. The first time I heard that, kind of pissed me off, because I was like, whoa, how is the world a reflection of me? And the way I really was able to understand it was, how can two people watch the same movie, or experience a rainy day and have two totally different perspectives, right? That for me really opened my eyes. Like, for instance, my wife and I will watch Harry Potter, right? And she might not understand it. She might at the end have a different perspective, that it was boring, that it was too long, and then where I was engrossed, and then I loved it because of the adventure and of the hero's journey and the plot, and so two people can experience two different things within the same moment. So what that means is, whatever it is that I have inside, it's a direct reflection from the outside, right? So that's something that I had to really learn and understand. And taking a deep breath, it really brings you to the present moment. I know there's a lot of different techniques for mindfulness, and I believe me, I've done pretty much all of them, except plant-based medicine. I have not done that yet as of now, but I've done a lot of exercises, and it all comes down to breathing. Breathing is probably one of the most important ways that you can calm your nervous system, because again, that gives more oxygen, right? And I talk about in other videos about belly breathing, to your nervous system. And that's when it says that there is no danger, right? So then you're able to calm down, and then you're able to think somewhat logically, separate your emotions, right? And then be in the present moment, because that's the whole goal of the differential between responding or reacting, is to be in the present moment, not get carried away with your emotions or your thoughts, thinking of the past or the future. So you want to come back to the present moment, and then that's how you have control over how to react or how to respond. Our goal is to respond in the present moment. And the way you do that is by taking breaths, right? By breathing. And usually we don't even think that we're breathing because it's happened so automatic. But as soon as you bring awareness, probably since I've said that, you'll catch yourself breathing, and you start realizing, and you want to do belly breathing, right? So it's very important. So I hope this video helps, and it really helps you, to be able to respond to situations in your life. It truly makes it happier. You're able to make a lot of, better choices, at least for me, and making, better choices in my life, and responding to things, enjoying things, being more present, and just creating a overall happier life, and really breaking free from those things that we don't want to do in the moment. So if you found this video useful, make sure you subscribe. Put on the comments down below, how have you been able to go from responding to reacting? Or if you ever have experienced it, or maybe you weren't even aware of it, that you were just reacting, but you do have a choice of responding by being in the present moment, and you can use breathing. So I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.